Email us as always, freedom@charliekirk.com. In just a second, we have the legendary Brett Favre joining us, but I have to get some things off my chest first. I got to talk about some things that Brett may or may not be able to talk about. And, we talk a lot about lawfare. We talk about how people are targeted by government agents and government agencies. And this is a story that you guys need to know about. We expect our government officials to act in the public interest. You'd think that in the state of Mississippi, a deep red state, a great state full of patriots, we wouldn't have to deal with this kind of nonsense. But this sort of targeting is not immune in Mississippi to the favorite son of Mississippi and our next guest, Brett Favre. And if it could happen to him, it could happen to anybody. This story is chilling. We talk a lot about Letitia James and Alvin Bragg targeting Donald Trump. But let me tell you about what's been happening in Mississippi below the radar. If you don't know about this, you got to pay attention. It's all about this guy by the name of Shad White. Several years ago, Shad White informed Brett Favre that a well-known Mississippi nonprofit company had used federal welfare funds that had received from the state to pay Brett for an endorsement and advertising work that Brett agreed to do for the nonprofit. No big deal there. Even though Brett had done nothing wrong, he did not know the source of the funds, and Brett had performed services for the nonprofit, he returned all the funds to the state of Mississippi. Brett returned the funds, no questions asked, and because he had done nothing wrong and did not ask for a release of any claims or anything else, Shad White publicly congratulated Brett for his upstanding and generous conduct. However, for purely political reasons, similar to Alvin Bragg and Fannie Willis, White then later turned on Brett. The state, led by Shad White, sued Brett for the money that he'd already returned. That's really bizarre. How do you even do that? White knew that suing Brett would attract widespread publicity, and it has. In fact, the publicity has made Brett persona non grata in many circles and has damaged his ability to make a living in the state of Mississippi. You see, Shad wanted that publicity because he's a very ambitious person, like Fannie Willis. He wants to be the next governor of Mississippi. In other words, he decided to try and advance his career by improperly destroying American patriot and great man Brett Favre. Now, White recently has written a book about his efforts to go after Brett. Yes, you heard me right. He wrote a book. He's trying to personally profit from going after Brett Favre. Where is the crime? What is the issue? Do you see a pattern here? As state auditor, he's the one responsible for auditing state agencies in Mississippi to ensure they are running properly. Talk about the fox guarding the henhouse. Now, after he was sued, Brett asked the court to throw out White's ridiculous lawsuit seeking funds that Brett had already returned. But before the court ruled on his request, the state dropped its original claims and sued Brett for something else altogether. Now, they claimed that federal welfare funds the state transferred through its state nonprofit to another state entity, Southern Miss University, Brett's alma mater, were used to put up some building on that state college's property. It's all very confusing. And they claim that this was done for Brett's benefit and therefore Brett's responsible. And if a building the state owns paid for state money really belongs to Brett. These are ludicrous claims, no different than what we've been seeing in the lawfare type chapter. But again, in the deepest red state, Mississippi, they're not immune to this. Now, to bring these ludicrous claims, the state isn't using state attorneys. Instead, they retain private lawyers and, believe it or not, the same kind of funds, federal welfare funds, to pay for those private lawyers. Now, there's no way Brett could be responsible for any of this. Every relevant state agency and numerous public officials and lawyers had specifically approved the transfer of funds to construct the building. It's all out in the open. And yet state auditor Shad White is trying to blame retired quarterback, non-lawyer, American patriot, private citizen Brett Favre. On top of all this, Brett and his lawyers, while they're doing everything they can to possibly defend Brett in court and have sued Shad White in separate case for defaming Brett, having very limited in their ability to publicly protect his reputation because of a Democrat-elected judge has put a gag order on his parties and lawyers. Now, no public official should have the power to unjustly attack a private citizen. It's wrong when Letitia James does it, and it's wrong when Shad White does it. And we have a message for Shad White, a Turning Point Action, and all of us here. We've been watching you, and we don't like what you're doing here. And we're going to make sure that you're not elected as governor of Mississippi and you do not have a political future if this nonsense and this garbage continues. An American hero like Brett Favre, it's now, we have to stand by him. You took a risk by going after Brett, and the American people are waking up to this, and we won't stand for this type of lawfare. So we'll see you on the campaign trail, Shad.